Let's make this data beautiful. Look, the reality is banks are spending millions of dollars every year getting the best strategists and quants and data analysis teams. They're putting it all together and it's fantastic. And they have really smart people from the top universities. And then when it comes down to it, they have all this great data. They put it in a spreadsheet. They send it to the MD and the MD is like, what am I looking at? The presentation stinks. The data doesn't look good. And all of those millions of dollars went to nothing because ultimately the people who need to make decisions based on it are not impressed. Well, actual skills to make data look good, it's not very difficult. So I'm going to quickly take this data, transform it into something beautiful, and then show you how to do the same thing with some graphs. Let's get started right now. Okay, the very first thing is these headers. They've got to go. You can't figure out what's going on here. And sometimes people do like shorthand, stuff like that. Keep the full words, okay? Unless you ran out of space, it's easier to read, it's easier to understand. Rule number one, let's make the headers pop. I like personally making a dark gray background, not too dark, and then making it bold. You can use different colors depending on what the backgrounds mean. What the columns mean. So this is not a set in stone thing, but this is my personal go-to default. All right, and I took away the grid lines on the sheet itself, if you notice. So you go to view, I turned off grid lines because I think it's kind of messy when the whole sheet looks like a table, but you're only using part of it. So let's remove those. Then I'm going to click over here at the end of the data set, Control Shift left and down, and then I'm going to create borders for everything. So everything has borders now. Very nice, easy to see, focus on the data set that I want to. I'm going to highlight all 4 columns and double click at the edge, and now it expanded the columns so none of the data is missing. Sometimes that might get really messy if there's even one cell that just goes on really long, but let's pretend we don't have that issue right now. Okay, now it's very important. If you've seen my data on SQL, you'll understand that there's something called attribute data, and then there are values. The attributes are the columns that describe the data, whereas values are transactional, such as how much was traded, what the price of something is. I like keeping attributes on the left and volumes and change and other kind of values on the right. It's easier in your brain to think about how to organize your data like that. So date is something that describes that it happened on this day. It's not a value. So I'm going to take date and state. I'm going to highlight all that and I'm going to set it to the left. These values I would set to the right, but they already are right adjusted naturally, so I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so it's already starting to look a lot better. I'm going to highlight the entire volume column, and since volume is text, the change I'm going to make now will not impact it. I'm going to put down a comma, and I'm going to get rid of the decimals. Okay, so now it looks way cleaner. Already much, much better. For change, I'm going to highlight the entire column, and I'm going to click on the percent sign. Now, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros here, and it's not really easy to understand what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 decimal spots. And generally in finance, that's a pretty sweet number. When you're dealing with percent changes, 2 decimal spots is usually pretty good, unless you're dealing with like rates and you might need 4. So this already looks like a much cleaner data set. Once more, I'm going to highlight all of them and double click on the column. So it's the perfect size now. The data looks beautiful. We're done. In terms of actual data, we are done. There's one more thing I'd like to do though. I want to show you how you can make a really nice looking graph very quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these 3 columns. I'm going to dump them on sheet 2. Let's make this a lot bigger so it's easier to see. Whoa, what did I do here? Okay. All right, I'm going to get rid of state. Just for illustrative purposes. All right, now we have dates and values. I'm doing this as a simple example so that when I show you the graph, generally understand what's going on, and then based on what type of data set you have, you can kind of play around here a little bit. So I'm going to highlight these 2 columns, and I'm going to go to Insert, Line, Graph. Very simple, okay? We have a volume line graph. Not bad. So let's talk about a few things here. First of all, there's only one data set here. There's just volume. So do I really need to write volume up here and volume over here. And do I really need to indicate that the blue line is volume if the whole chart is just volume? No. So I'm going to delete this. You can just click on it and delete. And now already, it's just easier. There's less to look at on the chart, and it's easier to focus. I've always hated these lines, and most directors that I spoke to in banking don't like them either. They really don't help much, and they make it very noisy to look at the graph. So you can just click on any spot on the graph and hit delete. Now it's already way cleaner and easier to look at. The dates are actually pretty nice over here. It's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Sometimes they'll start going slanty or all get crammed together on the bottom. And what you could do is click on the dates, right click and say format axis, and you can choose how many months you want to go by. In this case, I would do, let's fix it 1 month at a time, which is exactly what we have here. So it's only 3 months, so it kind of defaulted to it, which is great. Over here, this looks okay too. If you want to get, you could do something like, here, let's right click format axis. I could say, let's display it in thousands. It's just easier to read. Certainly when you get to millions and billions, you'll definitely want to do this. So these are all the changes I'm making. That's it. I think this chart is way cleaner and easier to look at. And let's look at a comparison, okay? I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to insert a standard line graph. We'll make it the same size. Oops, for comparison purposes. Is that the same? Roughly the same size. Whoa, that's not right at all. Let's make this a little bigger. You tell me, what's easier to read? So it's really simple. You get rid of the grids, make sure your dates are nice, make sure that you only have the legends that you absolutely need, and that your title is clear and easy to read. And look at how much cleaner it is to the eye. So clean up your data, make a very clean, not noisy chart, and it'll be so much easier for the directors to consume your data, and you will make a much bigger impact. Good luck.